Reddit Storytime. Like and subscribe. What is the most inappropriate thing a professor of yours has done? I had a professor who, after a girl in our class was having trouble with a concept, told her, "You don't need to worry, you'll sleep your way to the top." He also would put questions on the tests asking if a particular boy student liked men, true or false. The final straw was when he threw a coffee mug at a student. After that he got fired. He was replaced by a substitute that didn't teach, but only played Pokemon on an old school Game Boy. Edit, reading through these, I remember a high school teacher I had that was giving us a spelling test. He would say the word, and then use it in a sentence. We got to the word flaccid and he looked at the girl in the front row and said, "Flaccid, I wish I was flaccid right now." I had an English professor that showed a full-on bushy vagina, randomly in the middle of his PowerPoint presentation. Then went on to pontificate about how he missed 70s bush, and how pornography was shaping society. The sweet taste of tenure. One professor I had was trying to act out a scene where she was a slave and the slave master was whipping her. Can't remember what book we were reading, but in the end it was her bend over a chair yelling, "Whip me harder, master." That class sounds awesome. I didn't think it was inappropriate, but my professor did get fired over it. In speech class we were having a discussion about words and our professor said that words can have a power beyond the intention of what the speaker wishes to say. For example, if I say sink or neighbor, it can stir up emotions drawn from generations of discrimination, etc. A student complained to the dean right after class and he was fired the next day. I felt bad for him. He was a very nice and very old professor and I think most of the class understood the point he was getting at, but I always thought it was so sadly ironic that he proved himself correct. In a computer science class of 300 people, the professor was giving a lecture when halfway through, a uTorrent notification pops up in the corner saying Battlestar Galactica Season 1 has finished downloading. Everyone cracked up and he was a little embarrassed, considering my university's strict rules on file sharing. I had a teacher give us a lecture on why pirating is bad when demonstrating some $500+ astronomy software. Then she pulled up Google and the recent searches included Starry Sky Serial and Starry Sky Crack. I don't remember the exact software name, but I think it was Starry Sky. On September the 11th 2001, I had Chem 2 at 9:30 AM, Central Time, so 10:30 Eastern. My mom woke me up and told me that somebody had attacked New York. I was a little freaked out, but I wasn't quite sure what to think about it, so I just got ready and went to class. Got to class and my professor gave us some speech about he knew there had been some attacks, but would everyone please wait until after class to discuss it. He would try to get through the lecture and dismiss us ASAP. I think it's worth mentioning that this teacher seemed like a really nice guy, approachable, professional, and respectful. I wouldn't doubt at all if he taught Sunday school in his free time. He kind of looked like a pre-bald Howie Mandel, and he always made really corny jokes. One time he gave extra credit on a homework assignment to anyone who could name the following molecule, CO, NH222. His lecture is a brief introduction to organic molecules. His words, to the best of my recollection. Alkanes all end in the suffix -an, like methane, butane, etc. They are named according to how many carbon atoms they have. Most of the prefixes should be familiar from your geometry classes. For example, octane has 8 carbon atoms just like an octagon has 8 sides, hexane has 6 carbons and a hexagon has 6 sides, and pentane has 5 carbons just like all pentagons have 5 sides. Well, most pentagons. Nobody laughs, which isn't uncommon for his jokes, so he continues. That'll make sense when you see the news. I think most of us got the joke. We were just shocked that he made a joke about 9/11 on the 11th of September, but nobody ever brought it up again. I cannot remember any time that a professor did anything inappropriate, but my mom told me about this class she took and the teacher was probably in his mid-50s. One day there were a few girls sitting on the front row and notices the teacher's fly was unzipped and someone informed him about it. Hit reply, "Don't worry girls, What can't get up can't get out. For an online course my lecturer was changed without my knowledge. The previous lecturer's instructions were to complete the work chapter by chapter and email them in my own time as long as it wasn't all at once or something. This lecturer's instructions were to do specific things each week and email them in on Fridays. Since I had no idea about this change I was technically behind. So, this lecturer called my home to find out what was going on. I wasn't home at the time so he told my mother that I hadn't been doing any work and was behind by 2 weeks, so when I got home I was yelled at for not doing my work. He left his details so I called him back and found out that I was moved without anyone telling me. We had a slight argument about my work deadlines. He wanted to fail me on what I hadn't sent in. We reached an agreement that I would send in all of the work I missed along with that week's work on Friday. I mentioned this to another lecturer on campus, and he told me that it was really inappropriate of the lecturer to discuss my studies with anyone outside of the institute without my consent. I was 18 at the time, and he asked what subject it was. Maintain ethical conduct. I'm taking a pretty advanced statistics course and we usually have to work with gigantic equations that take a really long time solving. My teacher is prone to say inappropriate things but this one really topped it. After writing down an unusually huge equation he turned to the class and said, "So now we just have to solve this. But that's easy, it's just a little Negro work." Where I come from, this phrase means a task that is easy but boring and time demanding. I had a pretty rough around the edges philosophy professor in undergrad, militant in his views and was always a little inappropriate. Here are some of the, verbatim, comments he made to a Pakistani student in the class. On the Pakistani student, coming to class late, what do you think, should we allow him citizenship? Okay. How about 6 more months? In English, in America, we say Jesus Christ, God damn it. Looks at the Pakistani student, what do you say in Pakistan? Bada bada bump bada? He made a few other ridiculous comments, of which my friends and I kept track. I had a professor teaching an entry-level computer class and one of the things we did was cover Unix systems. Anyway, he taught us how to browse other universities' systems and then demonstrated on the big projector at the front of the room. He was randomly clicking around and found someone's folder titled Dana Dykes. Then he smiled and said, "You never know what you'll find on here. Let's take a look." So he opened up the folder and there were a few picture files in there. The whole class is now chattering about our professor opening up porn in front of the whole class. He clicks on the file, and it's a picture of a girl standing on top of a dam. Turned out to be not inappropriate. Dana, I am disappointed. In high school, I had a maths professor who got along well with all of his students. As such, his reputation enabled him to get away with social feats not many professors can muster. One day, one of his favorite female students was playfully giving him attitude. I forget exactly the comeback he made, but everyone laughed and it apparently was rather a good one. After basking in the laughter, he smiled, lifted his hand, lowered his ring finger, and moved the resulting gesture closer to this student's face. He exclaimed aloud, "Shocker!" and then, in complete silence, walked out of the room. Had a trip to Key Largo for a biology class. We were observing the wildlife around coral reefs as education for us and data for a preservation group. We took boats out about 20 miles from the place we were staying at. Since it was 30 or so people, we took 3 boats. Teacher, not professor, this was high school, mooned the other 2 boats. He also had a picture on his desk standing next to a 3-tall pot plant giving 2 thumbs up when he was a forensics tech for the FBI. Despite how inappropriate this sounds, he was an excellent teacher and I learned a shitload. This man is one of the reasons I studied bio in college. She wasn't my professor, but when I was in college, a psych professor at my university found her car vandalized with the windows broken out and racist words and symbols painted all over it. People were shaken up by it, until some people came forward saying they'd seen her moving the already vandalized car into the parking lot earlier. Turns out she was pretty messed up in the head and she'd done the whole thing herself, just for attention. She obviously went to jail for it.